Hi, it's Armin Feldman, and thanks for asking me to give you a call. After you've watched this video, please shoot me an email and I'll give you a call as soon as I can. The way that this conversation has gone well with other physicians is for me to give you an idea of what the typical kinds of consults are that you'll be doing and to let you know what's in the package. Let me start by saying 90% of the consults that I do, the case will settle. And 100% of the consults that I do, I'm working on cases before the attorney ever considers litigating the case. There are 4 or 5 kinds of consults I do routinely, and I can tell you about those in just a moment. First, let me tell you what I don't do. I don't do any medical malpractice cases, and I don't do any expert witness work. The work that I do is either in personal injury cases or in workers' compensation cases. In the PI cases, I work on the plaintiff side, and on the workers' comp cases, I work on the claimant side. And that's really being on the side of the little guy going up against the insurance companies. Let me just mention a couple other things. You really need about 6 to 8 hours a week in order to do this justice. And if you don't have that much time, then I really don't suggest that you even purchase my system. The other issue is that the work that I'm doing and that you'll do is not specialty oriented. I answer questions for attorneys all over the field of medicine. And one thing I'll tell you about that is the attorneys with whom I work don't expect me to be a walking, talking encyclopedia of medicine. They know that when they ask me a question, I'm going to have to do some research to give them a good answer. They know that I charge for my research time, and they don't have a problem with that. I will tell you that some of the physicians that I've spoken with just aren't comfortable commenting on anything outside their specialty. And others, obviously myself included, have not found that to be an obstacle to doing this kind of work. In a moment, I'll share a typical case with you. One of the things that I do routinely is to do medical summary reports. The attorney will get me the medical records in the case, and after I review them, I'll interview the client. And for my purposes, most of the time I'm able to do that by phone. I'll then put a report together. I'll talk about the incident, initial injuries, mechanism of action. I do talk about causation. The bulk of my report are my opinions regarding ongoing medical problems. I'll then review the medical treatment to date, comment on that, and then I'll give my opinions regarding future medical care and costs. The attorneys are using my reports as part of their settlement demand letters, and the feedback I'm getting is that by using my reports, they're settling cases for better value and with less attorney time. In the legal world, for the purposes of negotiating and settling a case, what the attorney needs is a medical opinion. So between what they're able to get from the treating doctors and my reports, in a lot of cases, this will do the trick. Now, getting back to not being specialty oriented, if you take a look at a typical case, for example, someone stopped at a red light, someone else rear ends them at 40 miles an hour. In my report, I could be talking about post-concussive headaches, a cervical disc at C4-5, various soft tissue injuries, a fractured ankle, and the onset of depression. And we can talk about this issue more when we speak on the phone. Now, if a case doesn't settle and the attorney is going to litigate it, do depositions and go to court, then I'm not going to hold myself out as an expert in a variety of areas. And another service that I offer is I do help attorneys find appropriate medical experts. I do that for a fee, and my fee is less than the local and the national companies charge to do the same thing. Another kind of consult that I do routinely is to answer specific medical questions in cases. And I would say that by now I've probably answered a couple hundred of these, and I'll give you an example. A guy was walking home late at night in January, past a construction site, wasn't well marked. He fell into a hole. He broke several bones. He was knocked unconscious, and he got hypothermia. In fact, he almost died. About a month after this guy got out of the hospital, he was in the ER in diabetic ketoacidosis without any history of diabetes. The attorney asked me to take a look at the case. And as with any opinion that I render, I like to back up all of my opinions with evidence from the literature. And I can tell you, in this case, I really didn't think I'd find anything. However, it's actually pretty well described that in certain patients, certain circumstances, physical trauma, and actually for that matter, emotional trauma as well, but physical trauma can precipitate type 1 or type 2 diabetes. So I wrote up my report, I quoted the literature, I gave the attorney my report along with the papers that I used. He wound up settling that case for a lot of money, and it turns out that the case was worth more than the attorney originally anticipated because he was able to successfully argue that the diabetes was one of the damages in the claim. Another kind of consult I do routinely has to do with independent medical exams, IMEs. We have kind of a crazy system in our country. It's the same all over. And what happens is someone's injured, and because of that, they hire an attorney because whatever it means to them, they're not happy. And then the insurance side will hire their attorneys. The attorneys argue back and forth, they reach an impasse, and then the defense side, the insurance side, will say, well, we're in an impasse, let's settle it by getting an independent medical exam. And I know that there are very good doctors doing very good IMEs. However, what you'll find is that in every community across the country, there will be a group of doctors that make either all of their income or a good portion of their income doing IMEs, independent medical exams. They're under tremendous secondary gain pressure. And what attorneys have been asking me to do is to actually physically sit in and observe IMEs. And when I'm there, when the IME report comes back, there is a better likelihood that the report will be more objective and less biased. Now, after the attorney reads the report, if they're not happy with it, and my opinion is such, attorneys have been asking me to write IME rebuttal reports. And by the way, the nice thing about being on this side of the fence is the attorneys with whom I work are just as interested in knowing when it's my opinion that they don't have a case as when I tell them that they do, because these attorneys don't want to be carrying loser cases with their time and with their money. I base my reports on my review of the medical records, my interview with the client, my observation of the history and the physical in the IME, and my review of the literature. I can tell you that this has become a phenomenally in-demand service, and on average I'm going to 3 IMEs a week. I'm writing at least 2 IME rebuttal reports a week. I also act as a liaison between attorneys and treating doctors. If the attorney calls the treating doctor, gets the receptionist, and lets them know that he would like to speak to the attorney about some medical issues, well, typically they don't get through. So on any wide variety of questions, issues, concerns, reports, clarifications, symptoms, I act as a liaison. And also sometimes to agencies and on occasion to families. I also do straight-up medical research. I also bring attorneys up to speed on various medical conditions. I also help attorneys develop medical theories for cases. I also do reports strictly about future medical care. And the last thing that I do routinely is, even though I don't want to be involved in med-mal cases, I will do standard of care reviews. And at the risk of sounding a little presumptuous, I know the attorney will find some physician to do that. So I would just assume that that be me. I don't have any particular bias. I certainly don't want to be involved in the case. I'll certainly try to see things from the doctor's viewpoint. I'll do any research, talk to any experts that I need to. The report that I write becomes work product of the attorney, and that means it's not discoverable. And once I deliver my report, I'm out of the case. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what the work is like day to day. So now let me tell you what's in the package. The first thing in the package is my availability during business hours to answer any questions that you might have about a case or that you might have about the running of the business. And now that I've sold quite a few of these packages, if the physicians are making any mistake in the beginning, it's actually not contacting me enough, not asking me enough questions. I would just assume that you pick up the phone and ask me a question, then you veer a little bit off course. I'm also helping the physicians with some of their marketing at the beginning, and I'm also reading a lot of drafts of reports. Everything else is housed in a back office on the internet. There's a detailed launch plan. It tells you how to go from zero to up and running with this kind of consulting business, and it's literally do this first, do this second, do this third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. There's also a detailed marketing plan. It tells you how to get your attorney clients and also how to keep them. It's also step by step. Here's step 1, use the script for step 2. Here's an email for step 3, and right down the line. There's also a day-to-day marketing plan. It covers a day-to-day operations plan. It covers a wide variety of things, a few of which are contact management for your attorneys, bookkeeping, billing, report writing of this kind, information on IMEs, and a number of other things. There's also a website. It's the same website that I use in my business here in Colorado. And you actually take my contact information out, you put yours in, you click the launch button, and your website's up on the internet. There are also some libraries. There is a redacted report library where I've taken a number of my reports, taken out the personal information, changed them a little bit. You can use these reports as templates. You can use them to get up to speed on various conditions. They're in Microsoft Word. If you're in a hurry, perfectly fine, you can cut and paste out of them. There's also a medical journal article links library. I can't put up papers without the author's permission. I do have links to every paper I've used in every report I've written. Certainly can steer you in the right direction and again save you time. There's a newsletter library. It's been effective for me to send a newsletter once per month to my attorney database. And not only is there the practical information on how you get your email out, but again, you'd never, of course unless you wanted to, you'd never need to take the time to write an original newsletter. Mine have been quite well received. There's also an experts list. It's not totally comprehensive, but it's the list I've been able to put together over the years of physicians around the country in a variety of specialties who will act as experts. There's a members forum. It allows you to communicate with other physicians around the country who are doing this. So say, for example, you have a case, you would like to see if someone has had a similar case, you could certainly do that. There are talk outlines. There are talk outlines of talks that I've had approved here by the Colorado Supreme Court for continuing legal education. There are also forms, there are scripts, there are templates, there are various samples and examples of things. In fact, everything right down to the billing log form that I created to track hours. So it's really everything that you need, soup to nuts, to start up and to maintain a successful consulting business of this nature. So please now send me an email, let me know you've watched the video, and I'll give you a call. We can talk specifically about costs, and I'm certainly available to answer all of your questions. Okay, thanks for taking the time for watching this video, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.